Welcome back to Deconstructed. I'm your host, Sam Anima Mackenzie, and with me, as always, Harry Nero Richards. Didn't go for parry this time, but there we go.
Yeah, 1 in 2 chance of parry, just like a 1 in 2 chance of Zai returning up in a big game.
You know
how it is.
You've changed your tune, but that's not the topic.
Recency bias is the best thing in the world, and you should know this.
It is indeed, but that's not the topic of this week, Harry. Because instead we're going to be talking about MOUZ. News came out, I believe it was this morning. It'll be at least yesterday morning by the time that this goes out. Louis Mira, good bloke, he's reporting that they're going after siuhy. So if we look at how we've got to this point, obviously siuhy kind of goes unsaid. Recent major finalist, no one expected them to be there. Incredibly impressive performance. Looks like he's going to be potentially the best IGL in the world during the bulk of CS2, provided CS2 doesn't fuck everyone's career. Not a point for today. So MOUZ, MOUZ ended last year, semi-finalist at IEM Rio Major, possibly due to a Cloud9 choke. They'd recently brought in xertioN. They were looking really good. They come into this year. They barely played events. The events they've played at, they've been quite shit. And other than that, they've had one, maybe two decent runs. I mean, Pro League quarterfinals, I think it was. It's like, it's kind of whatever because of the format. Dallas second. You can't really take it away from them, but it is Dallas, so it's like their team central. So yeah, it is very tempting too. And then you've got obviously the Paris major right before that and Rio right before that, where they stunk at both events. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of now the general template that I'll give the little overview and then ask you your thoughts. So Harry, what's your little brief overview of MOUZ?
Yeah, they're just it's hard to talk about MOUZ because they've barely played this year. Like at the back end of Rio, they were getting Rio last year, they were getting a lot of praise, right? And then this year they've just, because they're not a Blast partner and they don't really seem to care enough to grind the online cups like the other teams who aren't Blast partners. Like they're sort of just sitting happy, like, oh, we got Pro League and then got our ESL ranking and we'll make the major and it'll be fine. And they just seem to come into cold like a lot of events, maybe because of the lack of officials. I think that's the biggest storyline this year, is just they've barely played, and then when they have played, they've looked so rusty. Like Frozen's still been getting his numbers, but the others have been like, it looks like they've not played enough. And I don't know, it's the siuhy news isn't a surprise at all, I don't think, to anyone. But I think what's more surprising is that siuhy wants to go back. Like I think there's a lot of friendship involved in that decision, to be honest. I think purely on paper there are better teams that he could have gone to. We proposed him going to, but yeah, I think siuhy is it's not going to be a completely magic wand to fix every issue that MOUZ had in the first half of this year.
No, I agree, right? So I think in that sense, the best place to start is who's to blame for MOUZ this year, because as you said,
whoever does the scheduling.
Well, yeah, they should be playing more online events. That goes unsaid. There's a CCT every fucking week, and they're all broken into regions that don't matter. So they really should be there. But no, so I think as you said, they come in cold into a lot of events, and that's sometimes that does feel very clear to see. But like, you've watched a bit of MOUZ, I've watched a bit of MOUZ. Do you really think it's just that? Because like sometimes, honestly, man, like they just don't look good either. Like I believe in at least two of the players on the team. I can make an argument for a third, and I'd probably leave it at that. But they don't look great at these events, right?
No, I know they don't, and that is the thing, and it's trying to link together lots of things going on at once, right? But yeah, like torzsi hasn't looked like anywhere near as good as he was in the Academy League. Like when you were watching the Academy League, it was like him and Marcy trading blows, like back in the first few seasons. Like I think anyone who actually watched it knew that m0UZ's stats were probably a little bit more earned. Like torzsi seemed more like the type of player who was just pub stomping bad players, whereas m0UZ, you could see like he'd do this to anyone. And that's kind of come true since. Like so torzsi's kind of struggling a little bit. JDC has had some horrible games, even though he's like got very tough spots, like very tough positions, and actually has improved a lot since he first joined MOUZ, I think. But yeah, kind of gone back into a slump for this year. And Dexter, like there's always going to be question marks over Dexter. Like he's come in as this fragging IGL, doesn't frag anymore. Still has a few roles where he should be fragging more if they're going to win games, probably. Like he's not like a star IGL, but he's not supposed to be the worst player on this team by like 0.1 rating, which is what he has been this year. And you can see at Dallas when he, with the siuhy he's coming out, it's fairly likely that Dexter probably knew he was gone at the start of Dallas. And then suddenly he just pops off in a few individual like games, like, and then he just pops off, and then suddenly they look good again. Like, that's what I was going to say earlier. Like, I think the Pro League run is genuinely like more impressive than the Dallas one because it's just they looked dead at Dallas. Like, even while they were winning, I just like the stuff Dexter was doing. I just was like, nah, like this isn't sustainable. And then as soon as they played the final, just like, yeah, not even close, was it? Not even close. Like, just. And then the people who shouldn't be question marks was Frozen and xertioN. Like they're clearly big time. Like they're proper players. Like those two could be in super teams and look fine. I think. Like xertioN's been a little bit more consistent. Frozen's always getting his numbers. We'll get onto that later, I guess. But yeah. So those are the question marks. It's can JDC get a bit more stability from his very difficult role, and then torzsi. torzsi is the huge question mark on this team, and I don't know. I'll just carry on talking. Why not? You can sit there and look pretty. So the thing with torzsi is, of course, and then so the thing with torzsi is, we've only seen him under 2 IGLs really properly. Right, we've seen him under siuhy when he was amazing, and yes, there was a little bit of pub stomping going on, but he was amazing. Like 1.25 rating, I think, in We Play Academy League with siuhy. And then in Tier 1 under Dexter was kind of mid, like kind of one of those AWPers that just looks like he's never going to break the glass ceiling. But then you look at other AWPers under Dexter and not like Acor. Like Acor was terrible under Dexter, but he's looked pretty good under siuhy, right?
Like,
and Acor, yeah, he's clean.
Fucking torzsi, he does pass the eye test.
Yeah, there is that. But Acor goes to siuhy in Game Legion, and looks like a good AWPer, and it's a terrible look for Dexter that siuhy can take this AWPer that looked terrible under MOUZ's IGL. So torzsi's the question mark. I know you don't rate him. I think it's hard for anyone to rate him based on his Tier 1 display so far. Like it is hard. He's just not consistent enough. Like he's still an AWPer. Like I think AWPing's really hard. A lot of people think it's really easy. But he makes it look hard. He does make it look hard quite a lot of the time. But yeah, I think it would be the thing with torzsi is I wouldn't cut him. I'd give siuhy a few months with him because the whole like the chemistry of that MOUZ NXT team was just crazy. Like we were all saying at the time. I remember I definitely had a conversation with you about it. Just like why are they only adding like one at a time? Like why didn't they add these 4 back in February when they added NBK? Why didn't they just add all 4 of them? Like. It was so obvious to everyone that Frozen is the only piece on that team worth keeping. And it's taken them a year and a half to get here. Like, it's actually mental to me, honestly.
Well, so, yeah, I mean, that's a whole other conversation about whether that was worth it or not. I think in certain aspects you actually can make the argument that it has worked out in terms of growth and development. But I think it has reduced stock in torzsi because torzsi, he looked pretty good. He looked pretty good when he first got promoted. Since then, he's been pretty bad. I mean, he's like you can, yeah, you're the bloke to tell me otherwise because you are Statman Dave. But at least from watching MOUZ games, it feels like torzsi takes a pretty aggressive fight every round. On T side, at least, very rarely gets a kill, and Dexter just ends up with the gun in his hands, Moving on from torzsi, which is always really funny, by the way. Like, get your fucking bingo card out when MOUZ are playing, and you can't just have it dexter orps once. It's got to be like dexter ends up with the orp 10 times and a half. But outside of him, like, you and I, we both quite like JDC. I think there's a player in there. I mean, the first half of last year, and everyone's calling him shit or whatever, was the best.
We did as well. Do you not remember how he played ramp?
Okay,
like
yeah, we
oh
called
my
him,
god,
we called him shit for ramp. He
improved
terrifying,
so fast though. Like,
but he was also the best Mirage B anchor in the world.
yeah,
So he had some potential.
Yes.
So he clearly had some potential. Like that was evident, and you've seen him at some events. I think it was it Cologne? He switched to entry in, and he was just running out, ripping off heads. Big reason why they got to playoffs in Cologne last year. But then, whenever they have a stinker event, JDC is rubbish. Like, generally, he will be in the bottom 10 players at the event. Yes. So, as the point that we move on to the next part, what I want to ask you before we move on is, yes, Dexter has done very little with the MOUZ roster over the whole time he's had it and all the different iterations. But do you feel like in some degrees he is being scapegoated?
Maybe a little bit, but I think it's like, you look at this team and it's not going to be like a firepower team ever. Like, whoever the IGL is, it's not a firepower team. Like, it's not like NXT were like, they didn't really have any true superstars, like in the same way. Like, I know torzsi had the like superstar stats for Academy League, but compared to like Bit and m0NESY and like other players who've come out of it, they didn't like. I don't think they were really. I didn't watch loads of it, but it didn't feel like they were overwhelming people with just raw firepower. It felt like more like they just had such good chemistry. They could play off each other so well. Like, siuhy's obviously very good caller. Like, there's no question marks over that. So it. I think Dexter. There's been times where Dexter looks like he's calling a really good team in MOUZ. I think Rio especially. Like, you can say Cloud9 choked or something, but like, MOUZ weren't just given an open goal. Like, you still need to put Cloud9 under pressure for them to choke, and they did. Like, they shut Exile up very easily. Like,
no,
there's been times where. Well, okay, so there are times where Dexter's calling, and it looks really seamless. It looks like a really good team again. So it's maybe a little bit scapegoated, but also, like, what other changes do you make? I think you could remove torzsi and it would be completely acceptable instead of removing Dexter, depending on who you get. Like, it's not easy to see a replacement, but I think if you know siuhy's coming back, you've got to keep torzsi, and then in the next 6 months we'll find out if Dexter was scapegoated, and it is just players who were supposed to make the step up but just couldn't, because at the moment it looks like that's the story of torzsi, but you never know sometimes with AWPers. Like you kind of should know, but then there are times where players just take like a year to just get used to it. torzsi has had a long time. Like, he's had a really long time to get his feet under the table and try and mold a playstyle that's a bit more consistent in tier 1, and he kind of hasn't. Like, he sort of, like you were saying, he's quite aggressive on T side. Like, opening Jaws Whites, he's not at all. He's more like the CT side guy, which is fine. Like, that's a fine way to warp, but you kind of look at the way Device is warping now, you look at the way some Pius is warping now, the meta is kind of shifting back towards people who, as getting their money's worth out of the gun. And at the moment, torzsi just isn't. He just isn't. And that is a very hard thing to deal with in tier 1 CS. Unless you've got crazy riflers, and I think MOUZ kind of do. Like, you could probably get away with torzsi being your third best player, but he's got to be a good third best player. He's got to be like, like dropping 1.15 ratings as your third best player. And I don't.
Also,
I'm hopeful that siuhy can get more out of him, because it'd be a shame if he was one of those, like, one of those footballers who just looked amazing at Swansea and then struggled at a good team. It's hard to see.
Heartbreak hotel for Joe Allen. But so before we talk about siuhy, then let's talk about one of those potentially amazing riflers. Because you alluded to it earlier. Let's just very quickly talk about Frozen, right? So Frozen, while Rops was on the team, if I'm right in saying, was still a pretty aggressive piece, and then Rops went, they had BMAS lurk for a bit, he was fucking rubbish. So eventually Frozen shifts into those roles, and I think Frozen's a really good player. I think you think Frozen's a really good player. I think just about everyone thinks Frozen is a really good player. Is he a bit of a sleeper blame F?
No, he's not a blame F. It's not that he's a blame F. It's just that he's not baiting, but it's more like Rops at the end of MOUZ, also under Dexter, by the way. It's not just AWPers he can't call for, maybe. Where Frozen will get his stats whether MOUZ win or lose. Frozen, like, I looked at it in Dallas. The stats are from before the final, but Frozen had like the 4th highest kills per round in 1 round out of MOUZ. So he was below like JDC in 1 rounds for kills. And then in lost rounds, he's like the top by far, and he saves a lot as well for a rifler. Like, he saves more than most AWPers. So it's one of those where, like, he's getting his stats, but they are a little bit questionable. Like, if you dig a little bit deeper, they're not quite as bulletproof as some of the other like crazy lurkers we have. But I think what's hard you can't then use that and just say he's a bad player. Like, it's a lot of time lurkers need a functional pack to have proper impact. Like, you can always get kills lurking, but to have impact, people need to be distracted for you to be able to make plays, right? If everyone's comfortable sitting tight, like, just not buying fakes, not buying anything, like, you can just kind of sit there and wait, and the lurking's just so much harder, and then you look like you're baiting, right? If your pack just dies every round, you look like you're baiting. So I kind of want a bit more from Frozen, because he does have that aggression in him, but at the moment he is just that lurker who like kills a lot of people, but the main strength is that he just never dies, like, he never makes mistakes. He's more like a Nath to me at the moment, like sort of like a better Nath. I think I compare him to that on T-side. Like, it's not blame F, like standing 5 meters behind a teammate. It's you're doing your default properly, and then whether you win the round is largely up to your teammates. And I think that's Frozen's too good a player to leave the round up to his teammates. That's the one criticism of him I'd have for the year so far, and maybe a bit of last year as well. So I think I'd want siuhy to come in and try and get a little bit more aggression out of him. Like, not loads, because you want your passive lurker to be passive. Like, that's the blueprint. Like, if he wants to be Rops V2, like, the difference between Rops in phase now and Rops in MOUZ 2021, like, it's night and day for how many more peaks he's taking and how much more impact he's having. And that is ultimately that's all you can get. Like, Frozen he's not the question mark if they can sort the rest out. Like, Frozen will have impact from playing exactly the same way he plays now. He will have more impact just if the team is more functional.
Yeah, I agree, right? And it's a very difficult one where, maybe people aren't realizing as much how little he's doing at times, but also it really could just be a consequence of the fact that you go from having an entry who's relatively decent to one of the 5 worst players at an event. But like, let's move on, because we've got siuhy to talk about, and that is, the big reason why we're even talking about MOUZ. What do you think it means for MOUZ, right? Because, you've got Dexter, who, yes, came in as you said, he came in as a frag in IGL, hasn't really managed to do that on a consistent level over in Europe. How much of an upgrade is siuhy just on that basis, on that fragging level?
A lot, but then got to remember siuhy's like a star player in Game of Legends, so it's not a one-to-one comparison. Like, he's got an easier time getting his stats. But then some of those where Dexter had those roles as well. Like, it's before Zersh came in, Dexter had a lot of good spots, and he's basically like, he is worse now, but he's not like, he wasn't like crazy in the good spots either. I think siuhy's definitely an upgrade individually. Like, it's just obvious to me. I think, like, just eye tests, I think he'll be more consistent. The thing is, like, what I raised there with the roles, that could be a bit of an issue. Like, CT side, they're gonna have to shuffle roles around a little bit, because in NXT days, they didn't have Frozen, they didn't have a star lurker, they had Shane, who was just, like an anchor basically. just an anchor on both sides of the map. Just pivot around him, passive lurker, support player. Like that's the vibe. Frozen's not that. So on CT side, siuhy is gonna, I don't know, like siuhy, xertioN, and Frozen are gonna have to shuffle a few rotator spots between them. Like keep the strongest ones for each of them. And then that might hurt siuhy's stats a little bit, probably. But T side's fine. T side, you'll just go back to just the normal siuhy, xertioN, torzsi pack that worked so well in NXT. And that is sort of the blueprint, I think. CT side spots, you can make a big deal out of CT side spots if we really want to. Like for some IGLs, they just clearly struggle so much as anchor. Like Glaive's one of them. I think siuhy and Glaive kind of similar. Like they need to be in the action to call. We've seen Apex. Apex has switched back to connector now for Vitality. Like he played Bianca for like 6 months. Now he's stuck Dupree there, which is a bit of an alpha move. Just I'll stick me back in con, mate. Stick me back in con. Spinks has gone back to short. Some IGLs really need those rotator spots to be able to call properly. And siuhy seems to be one of them. He's never done it. He's never not done it. So I don't know. What do you think? What would you do with those three on CT side?
Look, we said a few weeks ago when we were doing the Game Legion episode that siuhy needs a move like this to get into tier 1, get into the ecosystem, play in tier 1 consistently, and we said that eventually that would mean that he'd feel comfortable to make the transition to playing these lesser spots, so he can move up to one of these super teams where realistically on these super teams no one's going to do what Naf did on Liquid to make room for your Kindar and just become an anchor. Like who at fucking FaZe right now are you going to make to be anchor if Karrigan fucks off? Like who at fucking G2 are you going to do that to? Like you're not going to do that to these type of players. But I don't think that means that that siuhy should do that instantly at MOUZ. I think maybe he looks at it, like fucking 6 months down the line, maybe even a year down the line, if he's still with MOUZ and it's not looking like he's getting that super team move straight away. Maybe Karrigan doesn't retire after Copenhagen, which maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, who knows. Maybe then he looks at it because maybe he's built MOUZ back up to a point where, like, JDC's no longer good enough, and they could get someone, maybe someone from the academy looks worth bringing up. I mean, everyone at the moment.
Jimfat's nuts.
Yeah, I can't honestly. I haven't watched any NXT games recently, so Jimfat could be that guy. But I think for now, you definitely let siuhy play wherever the fuck he wants to. Let him come into tier 1 and just be comfortable. I think that's the most important thing to gain an initial thing in this MOUZ. And also, you got torzsi, right? Torzsi's the big project at first. Like Frozen will be fine, xertioN will be fine, JDC he's got the shit rolls, he'll do his job. torzsi's the one that needs the fucking work. It doesn't need to be siuhy. He sat there figuring out fucking what he's doing on 3 or 4 different maps. It needs to be, how do we get torzsi to work? So I think in that sense, you've got to look at Frozen or xertioN switching spots, which is when you look at the, like the cseratos of the world and what they're doing right now. So I'll switch it back over to you because, you're that guy. You're the cserato guy. But, like, who do you think is the better candidate out of xertioN and Frozen to move into that sort of role?
I think you have to do what FaZe did. With Twist, Robs, and Rain, they like shuffle around, right? Like, I think Frozen can do what Axile, Robs, and cserato do on Ancient, on Anubis. If they play Anubis, Game Legion and MOUZ don't play Anubis, so probably not. There's just like those maps where it's like the anchor spot is actually more important than the rotator spot. Maybe Vertigo as well. Like I'd probably keep Frozen and xertioN. xertioN plays mid on Vertigo, but so that's already kind of a bad spot. Like so sometimes it will just sort itself out. But I think generally, like philosophically, if you're looking at it like big picture, I'd give priority to siuhy, and then frozen, then xertioN for spots probably. Just because I think you're completely right. I think siuhy needs to be really comfortable, and that's the way to do it. Just leave him in the spots. He's got a frag to justify that, especially if someone like Frozen's losing spots, which I think honestly, if realistically, probably Frozen keeps all his spots, and then xertioN and siuhy shuffle a little bit because it's hard to get a star player to leave like they're good spots. I think it's fine. I think they will sort itself out. I don't think a role clash on the CT side is like the reason a team fails usually. Like I know Glaive and BlameF love to blame it on that, but that team wasn't going to win tournaments even if they grew up playing completely different positions to each other. That's not why that team struggled in 2022. I mean, so yeah, I think he'll be fine. I think I'd keep Frozen. I'd probably prioritize siuhy and Frozen over xertioN, which is hard because he's so aggressive and so good. But we've seen anchors on CT side still be aggressive on C side. I think it's fine. I think xertioN could be a decent big site anchor. JDC small site. There's like players are more malleable than we sometimes give them credit for. I'm a bit of a believer in roles mattering a lot. Especially on T side, I think it's probably harder. Unless you're like a star rifle and then you can just do anything. But there's like the big site anchors and like I don't think it's as huge a difference between spots. Like on most maps, there's 3 decent rifle spots, and if you have 3 decent riflers, then great. Sorry, JDC, but it should be fine.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean, you were agreeing with me, so of course I agree. But like siuhy as well, you made the point of he's got to justify being in the spots. I really think he can. Like I've watched a lot of him at this point. Probably the only player in this lineup now I've watched more of is Frozen, and that's just because he's been around longer. I think siuhy's legit, man. Like, I think in terms of the idea of a star IGL, of a fragging IGL, he is potentially the only one that, we said a lot about him transitioning to lesser roles in the future,
might not have to
a year down the line.
Glaive didn't.
I honestly think there's a chance he won't need to. But, I alluded to in my little explanation, I alluded to the big project. Can he get torzsi firing, or is torzsi just not tier 1?
If I had to put money on it, I think torzsi will improve slightly, but maybe not enough for them to be a contender.
So, in the point, you'd get rid of him?
I'd give him 6 months, like I said earlier. I don't know how much progress would you need to see in the next 6 months to be swayed? Because I know you're pretty hard on him.
Give me 1 moment. Just chat some bullshit for 1 moment about torzsi.
Here's a fun one. Not even about torzsi, but MOUZ's worst map this year, Overpass. They're 0-6 on Overpass this year. What's Game Legion's best map?
Is it Overpass?
It's Overpass. Do you not remember all those siuhy T sides on Overpass?
No,
the heroic
I
one was
do
nuts.
remember, but I just felt the need to clarify.
Yeah, there you go. So it's that'll be fun.
So I've had a look.
Good fill from me. Put me on the desk.
That was good. Put him on the desk. I'd like to see just on the base, like HLTV rating, right? We'll go off that because great stat, solid base. You got to be asking for like for an AWPer for a team that should be like never out of the top 15, like a 0.1 upgrade. He's 0.105 right now in 2023. Is that reasonable to you?
Yeah, 105 is not good enough, is it? That's not going to cut it.
No, it's not. It's not good enough.
115. 115 is fine.
115, like
you can win games with a 115 upper, definitely.
Solid point. But just because for my own satisfaction, I've got to get the little extra transfer talk in. If he's not good enough, who do you go for?
I don't even know. Is MHL good? I don't know. MHL's gone to endpoint. It's been rubbish, right?
Yeah, probably. Regali?
Genuinely don't know. Regali would be fun, but I think Regali's kind of Dexter. Can siuhy fix Dexter?
Probably not. Can anyone?
Can anyone fix Dexter?
Can anyone?
Oh, give him your Kinder till the end of the season.
If only we understood what was actually happening with OG and Orphers.
Actually, no idea. No idea,
Considering
mate.
some people tell you they're keeping Dexter, other people tell you Dexter's definitely fucked off. Searson's having a word, apparently, like, come on.
Searson? There are authors. There are authors. I
Get
don't think any of
Searson on
them.
MOUZ. He's German org, that's fun. That
I
is
don't
fun.
think any of them
Admit
are
it,
like.
it's fun.
That is quite fun.
And he
That
is
is quite
legitimately
fun.
one of the best authors in the world. But he actually just is. He actually
He's
just
one of
is.
the people in the world, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to find good authors, honestly.
Then Searson's one of them.
Considering that it'll be CS2 by then, you just pick up a whiz kid, right? Like your MOUZ, scout someone, find some crazy Pugstar author who's good at CS2 and has barely played CSGO that you can just give to Shuey and go, oh, teach him how to warp. That's what I'd do. I'd get someone with the like visible peak that you think you could sell him for 600k.
What about Wonderful?
Tempting. Wonderful's a little bit of nothing sometimes. Like he makes the right decision.
Nothing.
Yeah. I don't think it's like it's not a downgrade. It's just kind of like Wonderful is not crazy like on an eye test. Like he hits good shots, fine. Like he's pretty consistent at hitting the easy shots and the most important shots to hit. But is he ever going to be like a superstar? Like I think with CS2 coming out, you've really got to take advantage of that and try and find someone you can sell later on, because it's still MOUZ we're talking about. Like we were literally talking about Shuey. Like it's a feeder team. You want people with resale value, and I think someone like Searson probably doesn't. Like it's why they're probably not going to consider Acor, even though Shuey and him have good chemistry.
Which is a massive shame.
Which is a shame, and it is a shame. But it's that you want someone young, resale value, and crazy pop-off potential. And I'm not sure Searson or Acor or even Wonderful take that. Like Wonderful's young enough that kind of fun, but I don't know his personality. I don't know how good his English is.
I'm sure he might get him firing. We've given him credit for getting Orcus firing in this video.
Yeah, so give him a chance with torzsi. There you go. Give him a chance with torzsi.
You've got to give him a chance with torzsi, right? But I won't go back into it, but it really does feel like torzsi he can't hack it, can he? He can't.
It's just sad, man. It's just sad how good he was in Academy. He's like if he was on FM, he would have had a lot of potential in 2020, and it's just never realised, has it? But there's still a chance. There's still a chance.
Yeah. So, I guess the last thing then to talk about before we sign off this episode: Dewey, xertioN, Frozen, JDC, torzsi. What do you expect from this roster?
Upsets? Is that a boring answer? That is a boring answer. I know
it's a little bit
it's
boring.
Like a few playoffs. I don't, especially because the second half of the year has like 3 tournaments in it. They're probably not going to win any of them. I don't think they're going to win a tournament. I think like it's weird because we're like writing off second at Dallas as if it doesn't mean anything. But like, yeah, I think if they get to another grand final, but like one that's a bit more meaningful, there's no major, so every tournament's going to matter more, I guess. There's not going to be like a post-major tournament like Dallas. So if they get to a final of a big event, it probably means something good, right? Like I'd take a final. I think winning a tournament is too big an ask for how much work he's going to have to do with torzsi, and that I don't think xertioN is quite there yet as like a star rifler. I think they need a bit more time. But I want them to have been in a final or 2 before Copenhagen. There you go.
Yeah.
And you never know. Shuey's a major player.
I mean, you kind of hope they get there, right? At least like semis. When we spoke last week about the inconsistent nature of a lot of these fragging teams, these like star power teams, and then we talk about maybe the tactical side of Shuey. You'd hope maybe like if you compare to the tactical nature of Heroic that this MOUZ might actually be able to string some results together, and at least maybe not finals because of the limited amount of events we have in the calendar for the second half of the year. I know it picks up a little bit in the first half of the year, and we'll have that before Copenhagen. But one of those events is fucking Bass Spring groups, and you know, MOUZ.
Which they won't be at.
But so one more question then, because we started this episode talking about their very limited playtime in the first half of the year. What do you expect from them, or rather, what do you think they need in terms of playtime and how much we see them in the second half of the year? What would
Way
you
fucking more.
Shuey?
I think they should be in every online qualifier for every LAN event. And I think they should play a few CCTs if they've got nothing on. I think you can practice as much as you want. You still, to get good data that you can make good decisions off and changing your playstyle and things. Like, honestly, I think because Frozen clearly just didn't give a fuck about online games. Like, fine. You're not playing online games to see if Frozen's a good player. Play online games to see if the other four are meshing well. I don't care if it's boring. Like, it can't be more boring than practice. Like, a CCT must be a little bit of fun. Like, you see like the banter that Apex and Nip Academy had the other day. Like, it's fun. It's fun. It's CS. We play CS for fun. And those online cups just do make a difference. They do make a difference. Like, they definitely burn you out. Like, you don't need to go full Monty because, oh god, full Monty, that was good. You don't need to go full Monty on it. That's too much. That's too much. It clearly burns people out. But just if you got nothing on that week, like, maybe consider it. Maybe, like, official playtime, I think, is one of the most underrated things a team can have. And MOUZ just had none of it this year, and it can't have helped.
No, I agree, right? And I'm hoping at least CCTs. Like, there's one every fucking week. Like, fucking the Academy team just won CCT, like, North Europe. I swear that also happened 2 weeks ago. Who the fuck knows at this point? Like,
I'm like season 10 already, aren't they?
there could be CCT Great Britain and Russia would fucking win it. So, really none of it matters. Just fucking play some games. Like, I'm sure Shuey's comfortable with doing that because he's the only one who actually, you know, it kind of feels a little unfair on torzsi JDC and xertioN because obviously NXT, they did play some tier 2 tournaments. Shuey's the only one who actually went and had some time in tier 2 properly. I mean, I think Frozen did fucking 3 years ago when tier 2 was kind of very different to the way it is now because of the way the partner system works. Yeah, they've got to be playing a lot more. We've got to see a lot more of them, and you know, like you said, you get meaningful data from it. But also, if you do a couple of these CCTs, you win a couple of these CCTs, like, your confidence is gonna go fucking sky high, and that's a really big thing for these young players to have said that they've gone from the academy team, they've gone into the main team, and they're going to the events, whether they're online or what, and they're winning events for the main team, knowing that you can do that against teams that, you know, don't have this bracket next to them of, oh, it's an academy team. Like NXT last night in CCT, they beat Sprout. They dicked on Sprout, and we know Sprout have a couple of roster things or whatever right now. Zello's not been the player that they wanted. I don't even know if he played last night. I don't care. It's CCT.
Let's not pretend we care.
No, it's CCT. I really don't care. But you do things like that, and people always add the bracket of, yeah, but it's an academy team. Go and do it for the main team. It's going to do you the world of good.
Yeah, and one thing we haven't mentioned, Cyclone and Shuey were the duo, so that'll be nice to see again. They always had a good system, good chemistry.
Just fucking boots it. Nah, I want Ashley.
I bet Cyclone's been fighting for Shuey to come back for a long time, but
no, he definitely will have. He dare.
So yeah, that'll be fun. But yeah, I think what you're saying is right. Like, I can't remember who said it. It was on a different podcast, I think. One of the other ones. But these, like, bottom half partner teams, like, they actually lose more games than they win. Like, they actually just don't get to win many officials because they just turn up and it's G2. It's like, oh, brilliant. Like, cheers. We're underdogs all the time. Playing on those online cups, it could be really good for you to actually just remember that, oh, well, actually, we are a top 15 team in the world. Like, that is pretty good, you know. So yeah, it'll be good for them.
They're only top 15 because they're stat padding, but this is a team that could be. So let us know.
Pay for partner, boys.
Yeah, pay for partner, whatever. Fucking shitters. There's only half of them. Only half. But yeah, let us know what you think about that. Let us know what you think Shuey can bring to this MOUZ team. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We do more of these fucking podcasts. We do some interviews with some players you've never heard of and some players that you actually have heard of occasionally. And also some YouTube fellas like pleasant bloke. Yeah, let us know. Thanks for watching. I've been Sam Animo Mackenzie. He's been Parry Pyro Pictures. Got it in at the end. We'll see you later.
Good.